I've been writing fiction and other stuff for over 20 years. I've written a dozen novels and more than a dozen non-fiction books. My first two novels were published by a small indie press company. That impressed me so much I learned how to self-publish my future books. In other words, I have quite a bit of experience with creating books. If you answered yes to either of these questions, do you have any idea what you're getting into? No? Let's talk about it. My slides apply equally to fiction and non-fiction books. This graphic represents the reality of the situation. Creating a book is a long-term, multi-phase project. And my purpose here isn't to scare you. I just want to fill you in on what to expect. And that's for two reasons. First, to eliminate the surprises that tend to overwhelm inexperienced and unprepared aspiring authors. And two, the internet swarms with scam artists searching for inexperienced authors. They offer help, which only empties your wallet. Now, the more you understand the process of creating a book, the better prepared you are to avoid the scammers. Here's the agenda for this talk. I'll go through each phase and explain what's involved. Planning a book involves generating a lot of ideas. Whether the book is a novel or non-fiction, you need ideas and a place or means to write them down. Whether the book is fiction or non-fiction, it's an act of creation, just as an artist paints a picture or a singer composes a song. In the case of the book, the act of creation means gathering ideas. Then you embed all those ideas into the book elements. For a novel, this is called story design. For a non-fiction book, it's mostly research and developing the organization of the book. Fiction planning is called story design. This planning for a new novel can take me up to 3 months, and I don't start writing the first draft until it is complete. By the way, writing a memoir is the same as writing a novel. You need characters, a plot, scenes, a setting, and a climax. Writing a memoir involves the same problems as novel writing entails. Research is at the heart of non-fiction planning. It consists of using the internet and other sources, such as library books, to identify relevant information and then copying stuff or storing the links for further reference. This is a biggie. This part of the project can take a year or more. My novels take a year to write and rewrite and rewrite. This phase gathers all of the phase 1 information and organizes it into scenes or topics and chapters. Phase 2 is all about the author, that's you, banging on the keyboard, staring out the window, and cursing at the screen, occasionally doing all three at the same time. Until you show your family a manuscript, they really think you're playing computer games. Writing an article, or even a short story using a word processor is fine. Using a word processor to attempt to write a novel leads to insanity. Hundreds of small files with obscure names in folders that you can't find. You really need a writing app. There are a number of them available, and all will require a learning curve. I use Scrivener. So imagine this. You're writing a scene using a word processor and you can't remember a detail about a major character. So you stop writing and spend the next hour searching for the file about the character. What I do with Scrivener is click twice and the file on the character is opened. Scrivener and other apps store everything about the book in a single file. Everything you need is 2 or 3 clicks away. I write all my books in Scrivener. With it, each book has a single file. That file contains everything relating to the story or the book. Scenes, chapters, characters, sheets, notes, research, topics, everything. Even mind maps. Today, an author has a number of choices on how to get the book published. 20 years ago, there was only 2, a major publishing house or a Vanity Press. The major publishing houses are the dream of almost all authors in the beginning. Many of these publishers require an agent to submit, and while desirable, this option can take years to publish the book if successful. The independent publishing houses, there are many of these publishers, and they are generally easier to link up with. Most of them don't require an agent, and they are much faster to publish than the big guys. Vanity publishers will accept your book without question provided you can pay their fees, and their fees are enormous. Think thousands of dollars. The publisher will also attempt to convince you to enroll in quite expensive marketing programs. Hybrid publishers are relatively new, and while they have some legitimate features such as editing services and cover production, other services are similar to Vanity Presses in that the author pays the publisher to publish the work. This may be a viable option for you if you can't find an agent and don't want to do the work involved in self-publishing your book. The self-publishing option is increasingly popular with authors. With this option, the author has to do all the work a publisher would do. On the other hand, the interval can be quite short, much shorter than with other options, and you don't have anyone telling you what to do. Traditional publishing means using a major publisher or an indie press house. Agents are a necessary route to some of the biggest publishers. There are many, many agents in the world, but most of them limit their activity to specific genres like romance or nonfiction. Keeping track of the submissions is useful and necessary because some of the agents may not reply for months and the query information easily could get lost. Some agents will never reply. A few major publishers and most independent publishers do not require an agent in order to submit a book or a book proposal. There are a large number of publishers you can contact. Read the submission guidelines to find out if an agent is required. Many publishers specialize in that they only publish certain types of books, such as a cookbook. Be sure your queries take this into account. When looking over the web and you see an ad to get your book published, you're looking at a Vanity Press. My advice on Vanity Press is one word: flee. Every agent and publisher will have submission guidelines on a website. Make sure you read them. Each query will be different, but all will require a query or cover letter, a synopsis, a writing sample, and other stuff as mentioned in the guidelines. If you research self-publishing on the web, you will come across tons of material. Some of it's correct and helpful. Some of it is inaccurate. Some of it is simply wrong. Sorting through all this stuff is a tough job, so let's clarify the situation a bit. What self-publishing means is that the author is the publisher, and the author must do all the work a publishing house would have done if it had bought the book. You can actually find, quote, advice, unquote, on the web that advocates this type of nonsense. This manuscript is unedited and unformatted, but it gets published. Let me make 3 comments about self-publishing this way. 1, no one will buy or read the book because it's a piece of junk. 2, books published this way are why self-publishing has a bad reputation. And 3, anyone who recommends this process has no idea what self-publishing means. If you want people to buy and read your book, you have to produce a quality book package similar to what a publisher would produce. The nonsense shown on the screen is not the way to go about doing that. Going into the details on this work is beyond the scope of this introductory talk, but what a self-publishing author has to do is, 1, get the manuscript professionally edited, and that doesn't mean a first draft. Get a unique cover from a cover artist, design the interior of the book, and format the book. Your project will take weeks or months, not days. The initial thing you need to know about marketing a book is that it can't be a half-hearted effort involving an occasional email or blog post, stuff you send out when you don't have anything better to do. You have to dedicate a chunk of time, effort, and, yes, money to market the book. This part of the talk is about important stuff on book marketing. It's a complicated subject, and I'm giving you a taste of what you'll have to know. It'll raise a lot of questions in your mind, and that's good. These 3 questions are vital information, and you may have to do research to answer them. Your marketing efforts are a waste of time and money until you can answer these 3 questions. Who are your customers? Where are they? How can you reach them? For instance, if you wrote a kid's picture book, who are your customers? If you think it's the kids, you were wrong. Kids don't have money or credit cards. The customers are the kids' parents and grandparents. The customers for your book may also be a bit tricky to uncover. Landing pages are the most important piece of marketing you'll ever own. Think of an Amazon page for a book. The landing page components are listed in the order a visitor will see them. Any one of these components can drive a visitor away. If the components all mesh together, the visitor may be convinced to buy the book. It is essential marketing that you spend time and invest your creativity on these components to make the page as great as you possibly can. Talking about the landing page in depth would be a separate lecture and is elsewhere on my YouTube channel. The author platform is the way you introduce yourself to the world and consists of a number of components that have to be developed and kept updated. Like the landing page, this is vital information and you have to work on making it interesting. Don't bore people who visit your platform elements. If a visitor to your landing page is interested in a book but is hesitant because she never heard of the author, your platform is where you convince the visitor you aren't a serial killer or an international terrorist. Let's take a minute or so and explain why the landing page is so important. This diagram is a simple explanation of how social media works. You put a post on, say, Facebook with the link to your book's Amazon page. Someone sees it and is interested, so they click on the ad. Boom, they're on your Amazon page. So the landing page is about your book, and the author page is about you, the author. The social media is how you get people to visit your landing page in the 21st century. The landing page is where the sales magic takes place, or not. You may have heard about the publishing and marketing phases and probably have an idea about what is involved. The author business will probably come as a complete surprise. But the instant your book is published, no matter how it gets published, you own a brand new company and you are the CEO. The fact that you now own a company has implications. The purpose of the business is to tell the uncaring world about your book and to make them care enough to buy a copy. And here are a few business issues you'll have to deal with. Royalties are taxable income. Your publishing and marketing expenses are tax deductible. So the job of a CEO is to plan. So start planning. The type of business and the EIN can convince the IRS that you are indeed a legitimate business. If the IRS decides your book business is really a hobby and not a business, it will limit your expense deductions and some other stuff. An EIN can convince the IRS you're really a business. Want to see an organization chart for your new company? This is the reality of your business. All the jobs are filled by you. Oh, by the way, none of these jobs pays very well. I went through the phases rather quickly, but this book goes into each phase in depth. The book is on Amazon, naturally, and that link is in the text box below. It's also on Barnes & Noble and other bookseller sites. Let me close with a word of advice. Yes, creating a book is a daunting project, but thousands and thousands of other people have done it, and so can you. Just do it.